Welcome to the world of MS activism. Government has a tremendous impact in the lives of those affected by MS. In response, the National MS Society chapters in the state of Washington have joined together to create the MS Washington Education Coalition Action Network. For reasons unknown, the Pacific Northwest has one of the highest incident rates of multiple sclerosis in the world. The National MS Society is supporting research to find the causes of MS, better treatments, and cures. Until those cures are found, our advocacy efforts will be central to the programs and services we provide.
As a practicing neuro-ophthalmologist, I see people with MS whose basic needs are not being met. I'm an MS activist because I know from my own experience that we must find a cure for MS. This is why I advocate for increased funding for MS research. Once we know the cause of MS, we'll be well on our way to finding a cure. Many of my patients can't afford the disease-modifying therapies, so I also advocate for affordable prescription drug coverage and improved Medicare coverage.
Who can best speak to these issues as they relate to MS? MS activists, people with MS, and people who care about people with MS. MS activists are the movement, and people join the movement every day. They join when they write letters, send emails, visit local offices of elected officials, go to town hall meetings, and speak to groups in our local area. It's important that we do all these things because involvement influences the decisions that affect us.
Would you hire a stranger to manage your finances, then not check in with them for the next 4 years? Of course not. We elect legislators. They work for us. It's crucial that we make sure they're fully representing our needs. By providing our legislators with the best research and information, they can make decisions that will benefit our lives. By speaking up for issues that are important to you, you can take an active role in expanding the services, resources, and protections available to people with MS. By becoming an MS activist, you can actually change laws and regulations. You don't need to be a public policy expert to make a difference.
Too many people with MS are without quality, affordable health care and basic services such as transportation and durable medical equipment. All of these are policy issues and determine whether people will continue to live in the home and community of their choice. As an MS activist, I work to make sure people with MS and their families are at the heart of any legislation affecting research funding, health insurance, prescription drug coverage, and local transportation.
One day I discovered that my bus rides to town were about to end. I could not believe my ears. At that time, I was a severely disabled widow with 4 kids, still living at home, living in a rural community. I had no one to turn to, and I didn't know what to do. That was the beginning of my education on being an activist. Following hours on the phone, meetings with transit authorities, state lawmakers, and Snohomish County elected officials, the many hours of painstaking work resulted in the beautiful life-giving light of a transportation assistance program.
If someone doesn't have a personal connection, it's difficult to understand what it means to live with MS. MS activists help others understand. They help policymakers understand what people with MS go through on a daily basis. I've been open about my MS since first being diagnosed. If someone wants to talk about MS, I'm more than willing. To me, it makes sense that I join the movement and be an MS activist. By developing a personal relationship with policymakers, I secure an influence in the decisions that will be made in Olympia and that will affect me and the approximately 9,500 people in Washington State living with MS. What other way can contact with a few people have such far-reaching results? We need to speak with our legislators so that they understand the needs of not only those of us living with MS, but the disability community as a whole.
The National MS Society gives me the information I need about these issues, so when I'm asked to make contact, I can talk with legislators about legislation and regulation. I combine the information with my own experience, and I become a successful MS activist. I bring my experience, and you can bring yours too. Being a part of this movement gives us all the ability to influence public policy and improve the quality of life for people with MS and their families.
Your legislators represent you and others in your district, but they cannot be effective if they don't know what you want. It's our responsibility to provide legislators with the research and information they need to make sound decisions concerning people with MS.
It's an awesome sight to see everyone gathered at the Capitol on Advocacy Day, wearing their orange scarves and ready to meet those who represent us. They really do want to hear from us, to know what we think, and this is one way we can deliver our message. People say that they are merely one person and won't be able to make a difference. One person can make a difference. The reason I know I make a difference is that I'm part of something much bigger. I'm part of a growing movement by and for people with MS that will move us closer to a world free of this disease. We have to be heard. We have to be MS activists, whether it is by visiting our legislators in person, sending emails prompted by an action alert from the National MS Society, making phone calls, or voting. For me, the bottom line is this: why should I expect anyone else to advocate on my behalf if I'm not willing to do it myself? If we don't advocate for ourselves or for those living with MS, who will? We have to be the voice of MS. Become an MS activist. Join the movement.
MS stops people from moving. We're here to make sure it doesn't. We're building a movement in Washington State, and we'd like you to join.
We are here, and our voices need to be heard.
You can actually change laws and regulations.
We have to be the voice of MS. One person can make a difference.
We're building a grassroots movement of activists.
Together, we can wipe out MS.
Become an MS activist.
Join the movement.